Co-host Javier Vicuna.
And today's show, we'll be talking about Mother's Day, but with a little twist. We'll be talking about how it is growing up as having a Hispanic mother and also what our mothers have gone through. So it's going to be an interesting one. But before we start, let's do an icebreaker. So what's your favorite breakfast?
Favorite breakfast? It's funny because usually I don't eat breakfast, but this week, it's funny that you asked this question because this week I've started actually eating breakfast, and it's actually helped me with eating a lot less throughout the day. I've realized that now. But definitely my go-to breakfast has got to be a bagel.
Bagel.
I love me a good bagel.
Just like plain.
Nah, I go with cream cheese, avocado, and bacon. That is the goated trio right there for me.
Interesting.
That does it for me. Yeah, and I can eat that, and I can be pretty much not that hungry throughout the day. So I recommend it to people. If they want to get into at least eating less or having better eating habits, in my opinion, as I'm someone who struggles with that. I think eating breakfast definitely helps just kind of keep you nice and full throughout the day. And you can eat a light lunch or something, depending, or you can eat whatever you want. But I'm just thinking of it from a not overeating point of view. Yeah, I really enjoy breakfast. What's yours?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's avocado toast with fried egg. Is it fried egg? It's called estrellados.
Yeah.
And
is it the one with the yolk on the top?
I like to do mine fully cooked.
Oh, fully cooked. Okay.
Because I don't know, for me, I don't like the
yolk.
The yolk.
When it's runny and stuff.
It's I don't know how to say it in English, but it's there's sheshura,
I don't even.
You don't know? You never heard of that?
Never heard that word before. No.
I wonder if some people, maybe Santi knows the word sheshura. No. maybe my mom made it up.
Hey, yeah. Part of the vocabulary. Moms make things up like that.
That's
all the
true.
time.
That's true.
Yeah.
Growing up, I made a lot of words made up
words. Yeah.
I would say Parque de los Muertos. Have you?
Parque de los Muertos?
Yeah,
what?
but it's actually the park here in San Marin, Pioneer Park.
Oh, Pioneer Park. Oh,
because
there's a graveyard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it would cemetery.
Be, yeah, Parque de los Muertos. I don't know why, but we just always call. I mean,
gave nicknames, kind of.
I don't know. Yeah, it just made sense for me as a little kid. But going back to our original topic for today, we're going to be talking about experiences growing up with Hispanic mom. And let's start with Javier. What's your favorite memory with your mom growing up?
I think definitely. So, growing up, my mom was an immigrant woman who came from Mexico. She arrived in Mexico with my brother, who was 7 at the time, and they both crossed the border together. So for her, she crossed over here to meet with my dad because my dad was already in the U.S. And a lot of that, my mom always made it a very, very vital thing, and I'm glad that she did, was to always just only speak Spanish in the household, so that I wouldn't lose the ability to speak Spanish. Because to her that was again a superpower, and it is. Being bilingual is a superpower, and I don't think anyone should feel ashamed about knowing another language or it's embarrassing or whatever, because I've met so many Latino people, especially now, that are just embarrassed to speak Spanish, or just some parents who choose not to teach their kids Spanish because they want them to just be fully American, fully transporting them.
Yeah, but also we have to give perspective that at least some people shy away from speaking Spanish because it's hard for them. Have you seen the No Sabo kid? Memes?
Yeah,
I feel that kind of makes it hard for them, but I agree that speaking Spanish is a superpower as well.
Yeah.
Being bilingual,
and it's solely again one of those big things that my mom taught me again at a young age, that hey, you shouldn't lose Spanish and you shouldn't lose your connection to where you're from, right? So growing up, I always knew I was Mexican, but I didn't. Again, I knew I was Latino, and I was growing up in a Latino household. That I all understood, and my mom was really the one who really again encouraged me to keep that in my head. So yeah.
So what would be your favorite memory? Just
From there, yeah. Sorry, I kind of went on a little tangent there. But definitely my favorite memory is, so since my mom didn't have a car at the time, that we are, I would travel a lot with my mom with public transportation. So we would take the bus all the time.
Me too.
And some of my favorite memories were taking the bus over to Novato, because we lived here in San Rafael, and going over to Novato and going to Target and just being there for hours. To me, Target was like a toy land for me because, I got to see all the Legos, I got to see all the video games and everything. And then my mom would always buy me at least like one thing. So I'd always look forward to that. So that's definitely like the memories. And again, that's where my mom would teach me Spanish. And at the same time, like we would just spend a lot of time together because, she worked part-time and really she was just taking care of me, right? While my dad was the full-time worker. So a lot of the memories that I've made growing up are, again, associated with my mom because she was with me basically as I was growing up. Yeah. So I would say, that's definitely my favorite memory is going to Target, going on public transportation and just exploring this new world that was new to me and new to her. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of interesting to reflect back because I forgot that, like, I would go to the buses with my mom too, with my other sisters, like going around, and it was a nice experience. I think that's where I like love to like go to places and not being afraid to go to like getting lost because like like you can find your way, and I think it was really cool. From that perspective of growing up and using public transportation. But growing up, for me, one of my favorite memories, so just to give a background context, just like Javier did, my parents met here in United States and had my sisters and me here. And then when I was 4 years old, I actually went to Guatemala and lived there for a year. And
with your mom or without your mom?
With my mom.
Oh.
So me and my sisters and my mom went to Guatemala, and my father stayed here. And so I remember for a couple of months being with my mom in Guatemala, and we were at our house, and it was very new to me because we lived in like an apartment here, but then when we got to Guatemala, it was a big house, and so I was like, whoa, what is this?
Well, isn't that interesting, right? Like when we come, like a lot of immigrant families who come over to the U.S., one thing is like the American dream promises like, oh, you're gonna have again, as soon as you land in America, you're gonna have the same amount of space that you had when you were living in whatever, your home country. Because like you said, in your home country, I can say the same thing for me when I went to go visit my my cousins and my grandparents. They have a huge house. And I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. But then you're like, when they came over to the US, they were like, oh, we're living in a small 1-bedroom apartment now with a whole bunch of other people. So the space is like, it's like it closes, it's like you get a smaller space here when you expect to actually get a bigger space. But that's not the reality.
But like I kind of get in a sense that there's a lot of work here because there's a lot of people here like communicating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're all working together. But when I was in Guatemala, I was with my mom and my sisters, and I remember going to like private schools and they didn't treat us well. And the reason was because I didn't know that much Spanish. And I think I was in kindergarten when they were like bullying me because I didn't know the alphabet in Spanish. And by that time, like everyone knew and I didn't. And before leaving, I was already in pre-kindergarten here, so I knew more English than Spanish,
right?
Unfortunately. And so during that time, that was really tough for me. But I remember one day when my mom brought a Samoyed. Do you know a Samoyed dog? It's like a big white fluffy dog. But she brought this small like fluffy puppy. And it was a puppy at that time.
Like a poodle, Maltese kind of?
It's a Samoyed. I need to show you.
Is that like the I've never heard of that kind of dog.
But
Samoyed.
Samoyed,
Wow,
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I heard of that dog breed.
yeah,
Okay.
and I don't know how she got it, but she got that dog, and she brought it when she was picking me up from the private school.
Yeah. Also, there's a
And-
private school in Guatemala.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And when I got there, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw like a lot of people surrounding my mom. I was like, why are they surrounding my mom? And then I see like all the kids trying to pet the dog, and they're like, oh my goodness, like. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so cool. I have a puppy, and everyone is like coming to my puppy and stuff. And I was really excited going back home. I was like thinking, like, should I name him Pineapple? Should I name him Bonbon? And at that time, I really enjoyed bonbones. Do you know bonbones? Like those lollipops?
Yeah.
And so we named him Bonbon.
Cute.
And that was one of my favorite experiences growing up with
That's
my
awesome.
mom.
Well, thanks for sharing that,
Yeah.
Emily. And I wanted to just add, so one thing that I think we can all kind of relate to is, so since we both have, at least my mom is this way, and I'm sure most Hispanic moms that I've grown around have always had this kind of mentality, is that like your kid, education is like number one.
Yes.
Like that's very important to our moms, especially here in the U.S. Because again, we're the ones that are gonna pioneer and start really branching our family bloodline here. So there's a lot of pressure that's put onto us by our mothers, and to me, that has affected me both positively and negatively. Where I am, again, like I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough, and sometimes I feel like I'm doing too much. But that's a whole other, again, I won't get too much into that. But the point I'm trying to make is that, one, do you feel like, was your mom very strict growing up?
Yes.
Especially with education, right?
Yeah. I remember in elementary school, they would give you a report card. Do you remember those?
Oh my God, I hated that. I hated like when you were in elementary school or middle school, they would mail the freaking grades. Yeah. And I think also in high school as well, they would mail the grades to you. I remember I used to hide those grades. Like as soon I would always check the mail because I knew when they would send it around, I would always try to look because I knew I had like a 1C or like a D. Like a C to them was like the end of the world when it was still a passing grade. Wow. But at the time, I was just like, it's scary. It's super, super scary.
No. So elementary school, I had these yellow folders where it showed like basically a report of my academics. And at that time, they didn't have any A's or B's or C's. It was just like one through 4, where they're standing. Yeah. And the teacher would write notes and stuff like that. And I remember, I think it was in 3rd grade, I didn't do so well. They were like, she needs work or something like that. And I think it was maybe 1st or 2nd grade, because I came back in 2nd grade. I don't remember. I think it was 1st grade that I came back. And I had difficulty transitioning back to English, and so I was put in these English classes. Yeah. And so when they got the report card, my parents were so disappointed in me. They were like, for them, they were very violent, I guess. You can say that they were like, they would hit me with a chancla, the chancla.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, I was punished in that way. Yeah,
because of the grades, right? And that was one of the things that I wish for me, like growing up, like not to do that, because it does create a lot of pressure to do well. But it's kind of funny because in middle school, when they're showing like the grades in Aries, I don't know if you guys
Aries, I remember Aries, yeah.
It was all online. So like, even if my mom asked me questions about my grades, I would be like, yeah, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. And it's kind of funny because after that, I got like really good grades, and they didn't even know that I was like the top 2 in my high school. And it was funny because when I told them that I got into Berkeley, they were like, what's Berkeley? Because they didn't know what was Berkeley. And it's so funny because growing up, your parents don't really know much about schoolwork and stuff like that, but they try to push you towards getting good grades.
Yeah.
And I think for me, growing up, seeing how for me, I learned from them that like they should know better. But I've also learned that it's good to be patient towards them too, because they don't know much English. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you know more English and you know more skills, and it's just like, it's like you don't want to look more than them in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, even though you have these skills and stuff, they're still your parents and you should respect them. But I also learned that you need to have patience in them and teaching them skills that you have learned, because it's an opportunity that you got from your parents, from them coming here.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And one thing that my mom got a lot involved with was the PTA meetings. So like so she really took education seriously, because she was part of the PTA meetings. And then like I'd meet all these random people. I'd go to all these meetings and I'd meet all these adults that were all like talking about the education of their kids. And that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, like I gotta step it up. Like I understand that my mom really wants me to succeed. That's the other thing, is I don't want to let my mom down. But at the same time, what some people and I myself really go through and struggle with sometimes is just understanding that you can't always just do it all as much as you'd like to. And I'm not discouraging anyone from trying everything, but it's hard. It's really hard to really succeed, really like in a way, like live up to the expectations of your mother.
But at least for me, I think everything is in its own timing. I think a lot of youth try to rush getting certain things and certain goals, but you have to realize that even if you're 20, you're very young. Like, you still have a whole life ahead of you.
Oh, yeah.
And there's plenty of time. So there's like, don't feel pressured to realize that like you're not at a certain point, because everyone is in different like walks of life. Yeah. And for you, you're in a different journey from others. So yeah. And for you, at least for me, I remember growing up, my mom would go to work, and she wouldn't be home all the time. So it was just my sister taking care of me. Yeah. So did you ever had to walk yourself alone back home or anything? I was usually pretty locked in, pretty much, if my mom or dad weren't home. What I would do is sometimes like I'd have like an uncle drive me to like my mom's work. She used to work at like a dry cleaners. So I remember I would just kind of chill out at the dry cleaners and just kind of be there. But yeah, definitely growing, like when there was no one to take care of me, I did have a lot of babysitters. I did have a lot of them ended up being like the neighbors or people like that. And I've, that was a good experience for me. Like it got me used to like, and I see some of these babysitters now as they were almost like my second moms, because I spent a lot of time with these babysitters. You know what I mean? Because like, think about it. Our moms, they sometimes work really long hours compared to like, probably a mom who's settled down here already with a nice house. Like, like an immigrant mother, right, who has fought and done so much to get here. She has to work hard to, again, support the family as well as the father, right? So, and that's one thing that I really appreciate about my mom, especially, is that she taught me that hard work can be done by anyone. And there's no barriers to hard work. There's no, just because she's a woman, that doesn't mean that she's not supposed to work as hard and she's supposed to leave all the work to the father. No, my mom was never like that. And she taught me that, you should always respect women in that aspect. And I really appreciate her for telling me that, because
that's what's made me again appreciate how society now has been really changing the way that gender norms are done. You know, like again, like the housewife staying in and the father working, like all that is just so much. It's just not a thing, really. It's not the way society is moving anymore. And my mom was again a big component to that, of me just understanding that women can work hard, and they do work hard, because my mom was a prime example of that. So
Yeah, that's good. For me, I think through the experience of being low income, like from an immigrant mother, my mom had to work mostly all the time, and so for me, I had to like in fifth grade, in fourth grade and third grade, I would walk with my sisters back home, and we had our own keys, and it was nice because it was just like 0.8 miles, I guess, to be an estimate of the school. And I remember like in fifth grade, I would walk myself to school and back home, and it was kind of funny because I would go with my friend's house and then walk back home, and I think I learned to be independent through that experience. And I remember my older sister, since she's like 5 years older than me, she would take care of us. But I remember when she was like younger, my aunts who lived like close to us in different apartments, they would take care of us. So I think family is really strong in Hispanic or Latinos
families. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because that's how like we all get through the struggles here as low incomes. And I think also like growing up, since we like learned English, we had to like fill out some paperwork.
Yeah, all that legal paperwork or like these super important documents. Yeah, I remember as a kid having to like read those and directly translate those, and I'd be like, you know what? I don't even know the word for this, but I kind of like I have to again twist my words so that it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that stuff, it's hard for a kid, and a lot of Latino kids growing up, or any family really, not even just Latinos, but I think anyone who grows up in a household where the primary language isn't English, and their parents don't speak that too much English, then when they get these like medical bills or these like taxes and stuff like that, and like reading all that, it's a lot of like a lot to understand. And I was just learning, I was learning as I was going, right?
And it's funny because it's like these little kids doing like these important papers of English for their parents, and it's I don't know. I think it's funny because I remember like seeing on TikTok like girls like stressing about like doing the FAFSA because they were scared that they're gonna go to jail for like doing something wrong and stuff like that.
Oh my god! Yes, dude. That was the scariest part, because again, that's the other thing that we had to be very careful with our legal status, with the legal, like what if. Like, we would always just question, like, I hope, the police don't come after my mom signs this because I didn't directly read what it said or give consent, or something like that. That's so true. That definitely was a big part of myself growing up. And my mom, would just tell me, like, just translate all these papers. I'll trust you. She put a lot of trust into this. I gotta shout out to my mom that she put that much trust into me as a little kid.
That is so true. And I think one of the good things is that there's programs now about helping other people with FAFSA and translating it. Yeah. And I think we're moving into a good direction by sharing our struggles.
Right, because there's so many resources for that now, like especially like translators being more accessible as well. Because at the time, like having to find a translator was really hard, or just our parents wouldn't want to like walk into courts or kind of walk in because it was intimidating. Like think about that, like having to fill out some like legal documents at a court or something. That's kind of scary because it's like an unknown. Very, anything could go. Like we would think anything could go wrong. So yeah, and that was the time when before immigrants could get a driver's license, right? Because now anyone can get a driver's license regardless of your legal status, which is great. But at the time they didn't have that. So another thing is that when my mom was learning to drive, we had to just I remember as a kid I was terrified because I'd be like, what if the police stops us and then they find that my mom doesn't have a license? Like they're gonna take her away or something. So that's why I would always get really anxious whenever my mom would drive, because I was just worried that at some point a cop would just pull us over randomly or something.
Yeah, that's so funny because like for me, I remember like as a child, I like did not like the cops. Yeah, like I did not like them. Like I was like mostly scared of them.
Yeah, no,
and
that's how I was taught. Yeah,
and I remember like when we were driving to LA one time, we got into a car crash and then there was like a cop and it just gave me like bad memories, just like seeing a cop because of that situation, and
being far away from home.
Yeah,
right.
And so I think I've lived a lot of experiences with my mom where it was a struggle, but we went through it together, which is really nice because you have someone there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, thank you for sharing that, because I have a very kind of similar story. Like when my mom was first learning to drive, I remember at the 7-Eleven that's actually right next to the Safeway on B Street here in San Rafael. I remember it was probably like her second month driving. And, you know, she was still getting used to driving. She was already good, but she just had, you know, and when you're learning to drive, there's always some just things that you have to kind of shake up. But I remember we pulled up to the 7-Eleven and there was a cop car at the 7-Eleven, and that intimidated her. That made her feel a little like, oh, well, I don't want to mess up or anything. Like, so when she was trying to park, she got a little nervous and she kind of went up the curb of the 7-Eleven at the front, and she freaked out a little bit, and the cop saw like everything, and I remember my heart just like stopped. I was like, oh no, this is where things get bad. And the cop, you know, he just like he just eyed everything, and then as soon as we went to 7-Eleven, he like just like talked to my mom, and he basically said that he didn't want to see her driving again.
Really?
They didn't want her to. Yeah, some racist. Like
straight up?
Yeah, some freaking racist white cop. I remember who he was notorious in the SRPD at the time. This is probably back in like 2004, 2005. I was like 6. I was like 6 at the time. I had to be. I was pretty young, and I just remember that again has bled into why I'm not a big fan of the cops in general and the cops here in SR, because not only did they treat my brother badly, but they also treated my mom badly like that. And then also I've, again, like that to me, like seeing my mom then come back and be like, I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to keep driving because it is necessary for us to start transporting. And we have we have this car. We need to get to places. So to her, I think ever since that, she has been clean ever since. Like she's never had like anything go wrong in a car or anything like that. So it's just experiences like that, unfortunately, that we have to go through. But again, like I said, it helped my mom grow and it helped me grow and understand that not all cops are nice and not all cops are well intentioned. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like for me, I had a lot to do with cops too. There was like one time where I remember like going back home and I've like seen that like our lock was like they were tried to open the door. The police, and it's because my father was deported, and my mom was at work, and I remember the lock was like kind of broken, and I saw like the house like kind of like, I felt like, I'm pretty sure that the police went inside and looked over the house, and so that's just like, it just gave me bad vibes of the police's, and it was kind of hard to get that trust with them. Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
well, thank you for sharing that.
Anyways, we'll be playing a PSA, and then we'll be jumping into hardships that mothers went, and we'll expand more on that.
Yeah.
But here's the PSA about wildfires.
Looking for a way to make a local impact and take action against climate change in your community? The Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership, in partnership with CA Climate Action Corps, California Volunteers, Office of the Governor, has an ongoing climate action wildfire prevention project in the 4 counties that we serve: Marin, Napa, Solano, and Sonoma. The mission of this project is to engage community members in volunteer work to reduce wildfire risk in communities around the North Bay. Since September 2022, we have recruited over 500 climate volunteers. In Marin, CVNL has an ongoing wildfire prevention project called San Pedro Ridge Fire Safety. San Pedro Ridge Fire Safety is led by Robin Pendoli and is a collection of friends and neighbors from throughout the county who are working to protect neighborhoods throughout San Rafael from wildfire. Join them 2 Saturdays a month to pull invasive French broom and help our local woodlands get back to health. The CVNL Climate Impact Project is a great volunteer opportunity for students in need of community service hours. Go to volunteernow.org/climate-impact-project to sign up today.
Hello and welcome back. So that was CVNL. You can check out their website for more opportunities for volunteering and helping pick out those blooms. But thank you guys for listening. I also just wanted to give one more other PSA here. The Wellify Teen, which is Sally Newson's. We had a show with Wellify Teen. Sally Newson's the founder of that. It's organization that gives resources to teens for mental health. And they are giving away free passes to the Mill Valley Music Festival. You just need to return a survey, and we'll put the survey up in the chat, as well as we'll share it on our social medias as well. You can fill out the survey and you can get a chance to get some free passes to the Mill Valley Music Festival. So that's pretty cool. Honestly, I forgot that Mill Valley had a music festival. That should be cool. And then also I wanted to announce that Listos, California is the state of California's emergency preparedness campaign. Listos means ready in Spanish. And you can find 5 easy steps to prepare for any natural disaster at their website. You can also text Listos CA, that's LISTOSCA, to 72345 to receive tips in English or Spanish on how to prepare for natural disasters. You'll receive 1 tip per day at the time of your choice over the course of 1 week. That's kind of all the little announcements I had to make there. One other thing. So moving on. Hardships. So we already kind of started this conversation. Again, one of the hardships for my mom was definitely driving, and the risks. That's another thing. I think that's the biggest thing is that our mothers, they took a risk coming to this country, and growing, like having us again doing things that were tough, such as driving without a license. Like that's a risk. That's a super big risk. But it's what they had to do in order for us to survive. So, that's definitely,
Yeah, I would add that for me, I remember my mom, growing up, since my father was deported, my mom had to take care of us 3.
Yeah.
And I remember it being very hard for her, and it was a very hardship for her. And it's amazing how we went through that, but we made it through, growing up. So it was really nice to see that. And for you, I know you talked about your mom struggling to getting better in driving. But is there anything else that you as a child you have seen your mom struggle?
Definitely learning English. That's another thing. My mom had to. So as my mom was learning English, she went through, at the time, the only kind of English classes that they offered were some classes at College of Marin. But the thing is, those classes would be super late at night. They'd be at 9.
My mom would take those too.
Yeah. So she would have to go to work and then spend just a bit of time with me. And then she'd have to go to the English classes right after. So that was a thing that, again, I had to kind of just be understanding of. And I did understand, because I understood that my mom was doing this to learn English. And I get it. I totally get it. but that's just again a reality that my mom and your mom also had to go through was again going through that, going to those late English classes. That's a sacrifice, but it's one that's worth, because they're learning the language.
Yeah, I feel like for me as a child, like I kind of like remember my mom trying to hide it, like showing her struggles. And it's kind of funny because I would hear her cry at night, and I was pretending to sleep, but I remember her crying. And it's like, it's really nice how your mothers like tried their best to show up.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no. It's okay.
Yeah, it's really nice to see how your mothers trying to lift up the mood.
I understand. Yeah, I know that our mothers go through a lot. Again, we can all say we never want to see our mothers cry, especially if it's something that we did or that we caused. I never want to have a situation in which my mother finds out that whatever she's crying about is because of me, because of something that I did. That to me is heartbreaking, and I can't do that. That to me, it's just it's a little like
we brought these tissues
yeah,
for a reason.
It's okay. It's good to let it out. What I wanted to say is that, again, for those that grown up with Latina moms, it's you have to see that, again, they keep a lot of this stuff internally. A lot of them are we kind of have talked about this on some shows, but like when someone immigrates to this country, they leave behind a lot. They leave behind their family, their sisters, their brothers. They leave a lot of that behind, and they don't realize that at the time, as soon as they get here, that they're not going to see them for a long time, or maybe sometimes not even see them, because again, it's not easy. Once you're in, it's not easy to go back to your home country if your legal status is undocumented. To just go back and visit your family members, it's not that easy. You have to basically stay here without knowing how your family's doing back home, and so much changes in your home country over that amount of time. So yeah, that's definitely like, again, like that's the depression that hits our moms a lot, is that they can't see their sisters, they can't see their relatives, they can't see their brothers, whatever, right? Because they're just so far away from that, and they don't want their kids as well, like us, to really see them like that, because they just want to keep everything positive. They want to keep things as good, but like, again, it's just it's hard to avoid that for mothers, and you never want to see that from them. So
yeah. And I've seen on posts, and I think it's more relevant now. I think a lot of mothers are talking about it, but mothers do get depression after they give birth. It's called postpartum depression, and this is they call it baby blue symptoms, and this can be like mood swings, anxiety, sadness, feeling overwhelmed. And for me, I kind of understand it, and I feel like from my perspective, I see it like they're saying if they see their kids suffer as a mom, it makes the mom feel responsible because they made the child, if that makes sense. And that shouldn't be the way. That it shouldn't be that way, that the mom should feel guilty for seeing their kid suffer. I think one of the purposes of a mother is to show the child to be independent and be strong to conquer life. And I think one of the key things for a mother is to show those values that she grew up to fulfill life and have those life skills,
right?
Because life is not easy,
especially for an immigrant mom.
And so, as an immigrant mom, it's important for them to show their children life skills, and also help them navigate through this system, even if they're like navigating it themselves too. And I think it's kind of crazy that it's like showing up now on like Instagram and posts on TikTok about mother depression, but it's true. And I think it's good to know that as a youth. I think we transition. We're transition age youth, so we transition from being youth to adults, and I think it's a cool experience to see that change, but it's also good to know what's to come if you do plan to like have a child or not in when you're older, you know.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Emily. I think also a big thing for me is that like my mom, whenever she would have to take care of myself, another part of her job was taking care of other children, because she ended up becoming like a babysitter, like a nanny to all these families. So what she wanted to avoid was like making me feel like I wasn't being like taken care of, because she had to take care of others. But again, growing up, she made it very clear with me that I'm her son. She's not like, quote unquote, like loving these people like the other kids more or whatever.
Did you become jealous when you
I didn't. No, I didn't, because she already let me know beforehand what was going on. Like, this is what's going on. Like,
that's good communication.
That's
skills.
good communication. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to again put a lot of respect to my mom, is that she taught me, again, communication is key, and being very transparent about just things, because life can be so dynamic, right? There can be new opportunities that spring up whenever. And it's just a big thing about life. And that's really something that's stuck with me, that my mom's really taught me. It's just being honest as well. Being honest with yourself, being honest with what you're doing, because you'll hurt a lot less feelings that way. You really will. You really will. But also, it also honestly can hurt feelings. Actually, never mind. It could go both ways, but it's better to be honest than really like, again, sugarcoat things or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, I struggle with like being honest with myself, but it's because like I like being delusional and.
Hey, we all have fantasies. We all have like our own made up. Yeah, but
like it helps. It also helps me because for me,
motivation.
Yeah, it motivates me because for me, like if I wasn't delusional of going to a good school, I wouldn't be in Berkeley. You know, like I was like kind of delusional of like taking 4 APs and
I wouldn't even call it delusional. I would call it dreaming big.
Okay, yeah.
I wouldn't even call it delusional. I think because those are all big dreams that anyone's capable. You have achieved, right? You've taken those AP classes. You're at Berkeley. You know, it was something that that you're describing as delusional. That to me is dreaming big and making those dreams come true. I think that's again in itself very honorable. So.
Well, okay. Yeah. I guess I'm not gonna use delusional.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the only context that I think I would use delusional is and the only one that really comes to mind is like when people think in a romantic relationship. Let's say someone who's gonna ask someone out. They like continue to ask someone out like consistently, but they still don't get like, hey, they don't want to go out with you or whatever. But they're still thinking, no, they're in love with me. I know that to me is being delusional. Like thinking that someone thinks a certain way that you're thinking, like someone's thinking the same way that you're thinking, but that's actually not true.
Not the case.
Yeah, so that's when I would actually personally use that word a lot. But
yeah.
Or for someone who acts like something that they're not. So if someone acts like they have a lot of money and always talk like, hey, I got all this cash, I got all this, I got this nice car.
That's like ego.
It's like it's ego, but that also plays in like they're just playing in that character, but in reality they don't even have that money, or they don't have, or the car's borrowed or something, because they're delusional. They think that they live this life, but they don't. So different ways of interpreting it, but yeah.
Yeah, I would think like delusional as someone as being delusional of like not thinking of the negative things, but like also but just like focusing on the positive stuff. Like what if I did this and this and this? But yeah, I feel like you talked about relationships, and I think one of the things as a mother is their motherhood is affected by their partner too.
Yeah. Oh,
for
totally. Yeah.
For instance, like after like the mother just had their child, I've seen a lot through TikTok again and Instagram of parents separating because of having babies.
Yep.
And for me, I was like surprised in a way because I've never heard of that, but it's quite like true in some relationships.
Yeah.
It's not for all, but for some there is.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think to me it makes sense because a child's a big thing, right? Having a child is a huge responsibility. Like that child, up until not for like like Hispanic families, I would say, but up until 18, because most Hispanic families they don't even care about 18. Like they still see you as a baby even after 18.
Yeah.
So, but typically, you're supposed to raise that child up until 18. You're going to be with this child for a really long time. 18 years is a long, long time. And, before the child, when you're in a relationship, you're probably, again, in this honeymoon state where you guys are just loving to each other. You guys are supportive of each other. But once the baby comes into picture, then the whole relationship dynamic changes. Because now you have a set of responsibilities. You have to take care of the child. You have to pick up the child. You don't have as much time to spend time alone together. Because prior to having the baby, you guys it was just you guys. But now you have a third. you have a baby. You have a baby that you have to take care of. And yeah, so that to me makes sense because then there's a lot of people who don't feel it at first. They're like, and then as they start going, they're like, oh, we're not doing the same things that we did before, or we're not going out as much anymore.
Yeah.
Like that. So that to me, it makes sense that happens quite frequently.
For you, have you ever like taken care of a child before?
Actually, no. My mom never really made me have that responsibility of taking care of a child. I've had like girls who were probably like 15 or 16 take care of me when I was a kid. I definitely remember that. Like teenage girls. But I mean, you could speak for this.
Yeah.
But like to me, it seems again, my mom didn't really enforce that on me. And I think that's just kind of like a thing with the whole gender norms in Latino families. It's just like men are never supposed to really they're supposed to take care of the child, but they're not supposed to like babysit like other kids or something. Most of that. And also because I think personally too, I'd feel more comfortable if a woman was taking care of my baby, whether it's a boy or a girl. Because when I think of a man taking care of a little kid, that to me it's creepy. It's creepy, right? Yeah. That's how I personally think. I don't know, but that's how I personally feel about that.
I was asking just to see like a perspective, to see if you had a perspective on how it was taking care of a child. For me, I had to babysit my niece, I think, and it was hard work.
How old were you?
It was hard work. This niece, when I first like took care of them, they were crying a lot. They were missing their mother, and it was a struggle. But
that's the one thing about kids. Like the babies, they're so cute, but then as soon as they start crying, I'm like, oh, I don't want a kid.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle because they kept asking for their mother, but their mother needed to go to work.
Yeah,
and but it's like building that relationship with them that helps, let them be closer to you and be more comfortable with you. And for me, it was not easy because you have to think about them when you're going to other places or when you're doing other stuff. And I think that gives me perspective of how it's like, in sort of a way of when you have a baby, like it's not going to be easy. And once you have that baby, you have to introduce it to your family, and relationship with your family and friends might change because you have that baby. And this is like so it's like all baby friendly, if that makes sense. And it just can strain the relationship, like you said, with the parents and the baby. Restrain the relationship of the parents because of the baby.
Yeah.
And for me, I think for our youth, it's important to know to pick like a good partner, because I think one of the things that a lot of youth are doing is like they like the partner, but they don't see
themselves having a family with them.
exactly.
Like that.
And for me, I feel like if you want to have like a family in the future, or if you're looking for like a future partner, like something serious, you know?
Yeah, you need to be very clear about that. Relationship. The key to relationships is communication. And if you're not very clear with what you want out of the relationship, then things can get very ugly very quickly. So, yeah, definitely. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's important. Because again, I know like being a parent is tough, you know, and again, I'm not trying to fault any moms who are teen moms. I'm not faulting you at all. My mom was a teen mom.
My mom too.
Yeah. So again, I'm not judging that at all, but I'm just saying
was
that,
tough though.
Yeah. It's definitely tough. And again, I respect all moms, literally all moms of all ages. So hopefully not, younger than what I'm thinking right now. But anyways, I respect them all, and I just don't. Again, it's good to just be communicative if you're currently in a relationship with someone. To again, if I'm not even thinking about kids right now, because like personally for me, I just want to be like good. I'm living my 20s right now. I don't want a kid maybe till I'm 30, maybe, but yeah, like again, it's just good to be safe about those things, and also learn about just again educating yourself and understanding that. And I think honestly Latino people have the most understanding, because like you said, Latino families are really big, and there's like always kids at parties, always, and there's always going to be a kid at your house. There's always going to be a kid at this or that. So you'll understand how it is to live with a kid as you grow up, because then you're going to be like, oh wow, that is a lot of responsibility, having to change the diaper, having to keep the kid quiet from
feeding
crying, feeding the baby, and like
showering them
and monitoring the baby too. You know what I mean? Like all of that is so.
I don't know how mothers, like for me, I'm kind of scared to have a baby, because like, what if I mean, I know I would have to like help them if they're choking, but it's like, have you heard of those babies who die out of nowhere? Like,
those are really sad. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It just happens out of nowhere.
But yeah, no, those are really sad. Or babies that just die while they're developing or something, like those miscarriages.
Yeah, and it's like future mothers like go through this, like, like a lot of stuff happens. But I wanted to go back to like what we were saying about like youth. And I think for us, we have to like, if we want like a future partner, we have to think like, if you see that partner, like too many versions of them, if that makes sense.
Oh, like think of them in different perspectives.
Yeah, like
what are they good at? What? I mean,
not like that.
Actually, no. That's a terrible way of thinking. That's a really bad way of thinking. Never mind.
I'm trying to explain. Like, so for me, if I'm looking for a partner, a future husband, and if I see them and I'm thinking I want a family with them, I have to see if I really want to have too many versions of my future husband, if that makes sense. Because it's basically that person, your partner, who's going to be teaching those values, to teach, like, his behavior, the way he's acts. Like, that's what he's going to be teaching to these little kids, if that makes sense. So that's why there was going to be too many versions.
And here's another thing is that, one thing that my mom always told me, and I don't know, I mean, Americans, like, I'm talking about like white people. I don't know if I kind of seen them kind of play around with this, but basically my mom would tell me that if you were to ever have a kid with a girl, you're gonna have to marry that girl. You're not gonna, it's not just gonna be like the baby and you guys are just gonna stay boyfriend and girlfriend and not get married and just have the baby. You need to get married to that girl if you guys have a baby. That's kind of something that I was taught. That's why I'm also like, again, like marriage is also a big thing, but I don't know if your mom has told you that or if that's kind of what you believe, because I know that's also through religion also plays a big part in that too.
Yeah, like waiting for marriage is one of the things.
Waiting for marriage,
so, that's the things that I grew up, growing up, waiting for marriage is one of the things based on my beliefs. But yeah, that's one of the things that we would do.
Totally, because but I know a lot of like white couples who have a baby, but they're not married. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like co-parenting.
Yeah, co-parenting. Yeah, and I'm just like, at the time, I'm like, whoa, that's insane. Because my mom would definitely not like that at all. Like, she'd be like, what are you doing? What do you mean you're not marrying the person who bears your child? Like, what? But it's a thing.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a big cultural difference here.
It is, and I feel like
it's a lot more common than we think. Yeah.
And I feel like everyone makes their own decisions, and everyone gets their own consequences with what they choose to do, and so that's up to them. I'm not judging,
like not judging at all, but we're just saying that these are observations, and this is the way we were taught growing up.
Yeah,
is that.
Yeah, it's like
marry the
it's
woman
based on
impregnate.
It's based on culture and like what you grew up in. But I think
same with like, sorry to cut you off, because I also wanted to add, like, again, like small things like that, or they're not even small things, but like, again, my mom would say, like, okay, if you're gonna move out and you move out with like a girl, then that means that you guys are gonna get married. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't. That's like. That to them is when you move in with your girlfriend or you move in, that means you guys are serious and you guys are going to get married.
Yeah.
I'm just like, so it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just based on their beliefs and growing up. But as we see, like, our society is growing into more of like them choosing what they want and not based on like their parents or anyone else. So, I think it's based on your beliefs, where you grew up, but like also like if there's a negative side based on your where you grew up, there's always resources to help change that situation, I guess.
And definitely a good thing and a good resource for you to get educated again on if you're a future mother or if you want to be a future mother is just going to Planned Parenthood, and looking at their resources. We have Planned Parenthood here in Santa Fe that gives, again, basically all the resources you need, like if you want to get condoms, or if you want to learn more about like what are the risk of a pregnancy, because that's the other thing is like pregnancy, it's a big thing. Like when as soon as a baby comes out of like a woman's body, it's a very painful process, like an incredibly painful process, and sometimes some moms die.
Yeah,
which is really really sad to know, but unfortunately that's a thing. So again, it just goes to show how much, and
it's very traumatic.
Yeah,
I just remembered it is really traumatic. Giving birth. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a huge thing.
Our mothers go through a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But
anything last words before we finish?
Yeah. So I would say is just I love my mom.
I love my mom too.
Happy Mother's Day to all the moms, honestly, because again, moms are what brought us into this world. And I know there's also people who don't have good relationship with their moms, and I know we didn't really touch on that too much, but
there's mother figures.
But there's mother figures too. There's people who you see as a motherly figure, and I respect to those. Again, those all deserve all the love in the world, because sometimes mothers can be terrible. Mothers can abandon their child for so and so reason, and not everyone also that is a mother is equipped to be a mother. So that's just some realities again that I want to respect. But yeah.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope you guys learned something. And if you have any questions, you can write them in the comments.